It's 5:30 on a frosty October morning in 1954. Before anyone else in the house is awake, your grandmother is already standing at the stove. Long before your eyes open, the thick scent of browned butter, sizzling fat, and dark roasted coffee is already drifting down the hallway, even while the window panes are still heavy with night frost. There were no quick fixes back then. No microwave buttons. No colorful boxes of processed cereal. Breakfast wasn't just food. It was the moment the entire house came to life. If you had walked into that kitchen 70 years ago, nobody would have asked whether you were hungry. They simply would have pulled out another chair. Yet today, some of these meals have vanished so completely that almost nobody under 40 has ever even heard their names. One was once recommended by family doctors to heal sick children. Another came straight out of World War II Army mess halls. And some breakfasts became such a familiar part of childhood that countless children grew up eating them before heading off to school. Some of these breakfasts disappeared because times changed. Others simply fell out of fashion, and one of them almost vanished overnight. First comes a dish whose smell alone could tell a child that breakfast was ready. Number 1. Egg in a basket. Depending on where your family grew up, you probably knew this dish by a completely different name. Some called it toad in the hole, bird in a nest, or simply one-eyed Jack. But no matter what it was called on your kitchen table, the ritual was identical. You'd watch your grandmother take a thick slice of yesterday's white bread, cut a round hole right through the center, and drop it into a skillet dripping with butter. As the bread toasted brown, an egg was cracked straight into the middle. Ask almost anyone over 70, and they'll probably smile when they remember dipping that soft, buttered cutout circle straight into the golden yolk. Number 2. Milk toast. Long before processed throat lozenges or sweet syrups, this simple dish was a familiar comfort when you were feeling under the weather. Milk toast was often served as a light meal for children, older adults, or anyone recovering from an illness. A thick slice of white bread was toasted, generously buttered, and placed in a shallow bowl. Hot milk, seasoned with a pinch of salt, pepper, or a light sprinkle of sugar, was poured over the toast until the bread softened and soaked up the milk. Nothing about it was elaborate, yet a warm bowl of milk toast could make a difficult morning feel a little easier. Number 3. Cornmeal mush. Now this next one required something modern kitchens have almost completely lost: patience. On Sunday night, a pot of yellow cornmeal simmered until it formed a thick porridge. But the real magic happened Monday morning. The leftovers, cooled into a dense block overnight, were sliced and dropped straight into hot bacon grease. The outside formed a shatteringly crisp crust, while the inside stayed soft and warm. Some people still insist nobody has ever made it quite like Grandma did. Number 4. Fried leftover oatmeal. Nothing was ever thrown away in a mid-century kitchen. If Monday's steel-cut oatmeal wasn't finished, it was packed into a greased loaf pan and left on the cool back porch. Overnight, by Tuesday dawn, it was sliced like cake and fried low and slow in butter until the edges turned chestnut brown. Drizzled with dark molasses, it never felt like eating leftovers to the kids who grew up back then. It simply tasted like Tuesday morning. Number 5. Creamed eggs on toast. While fried oats were for busy weekdays, Sunday mornings had a totally different champion. Creamed eggs on toast was pure weekend comfort. For countless American children, that rich, peppered aroma drifting upstairs meant Sunday breakfast was ready. Hard-boiled farm eggs were chopped and folded into a thick pan sauce of cream, butter, and black pepper, poured hot over charred toast. The sauce soaked deep into the crumb while the rich yolks added incredible depth. Number 6. Scrapple. If you had asked an out-of-town guest in 1950 what was inside this next breakfast, many might have politely refused a second bite. But to families in Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic, nothing smelled better. Born out of deep respect for the harvest, Scrapple combined pork trimmings with cornmeal, buckwheat flour, sage, and heavy black pepper. Sliced thin and fried until the skin turned dark and crackling crisp, it delivered a punch of savory flavor that kept farmhands full long past noon. Number 7. Rice pudding for breakfast. And believe it or not, one of the most unusual breakfasts on this list is still coming up. But this next one fooled generations of children. It looked like dessert, yet for many families, it was breakfast. Long before it was sold in plastic grocery store cups as a dessert, rice pudding was a quiet morning staple. Leftover white rice from dinner was gently re-simmered with whole milk, butter, sun-dried raisins, and fresh nutmeg. It filled the kitchen with an intoxicating bakery scent, transforming yesterday's dinner side dish into a warming breakfast bowl. Number 8. Hoe cakes, Johnny cakes. In many farmhouses, young children would stand on a wooden chair right beside the stove, hoping to be the one allowed to flip the hoe cakes. Most weren't strong enough to lift the heavy iron spatula, but they always asked anyway. Rooted in early American history, these humble flatbreads were made from coarse cornmeal, hot water, salt, and lard. Fried on a griddle until the edges turned into delicate brown lace, they were dense, earthy, and eaten hot right out of the skillet, drenched in raw honey. Number 9. Fried green tomatoes with poached eggs. Believe it or not, this next breakfast caused friendly arguments in American households for decades. You either looked forward to seeing it on the table or hoped it wouldn't be there. As autumn arrived and early frost threatened the garden, grandmothers harvested every last unripened green tomato from the vines. Sliced thick and dredged in cornmeal, they were fried crisp in bacon fat, topped with a soft poached egg, the sharp, tangy bite of the green tomato cut right through the rich yolk. Number 10. Hot grape nuts porridge. Created way back in 1897, grape nuts are known today as ultra-crunchy cold cereal nuggets. But for decades, many families preferred them hot during the winter months. Grandparents poured boiling water or hot milk directly over the dense nuggets, letting them sit covered for 2 minutes. By the time the bowl reached the table, those hard little nuggets had softened into something warm, creamy, and surprisingly comforting on a freezing morning. Number 11. Soft-boiled eggs in a glass. There was often a familiar rhythm to those early mornings. Grandpa would already be seated at the table while the rest of the kitchen stirred awake, his glass and spoon quietly marking the start of another day. No fancy egg cups required. Grandparents across small-town America would soft-boil 2 fresh eggs for 4 minutes, crack them directly into a short tumbler glass, and drop in a heavy pat of butter, salt, and black pepper. Using a spoon, they'd mash it right in the glass into a rich egg custard, dipping buttered toast strips straight into the middle. And these last 4 breakfasts might just be the ones that surprise you the most. Number 12. SOS, chipped beef on toast. For decades, millions of American men couldn't smell chipped beef without instantly being transported back to World War II Army mess halls. Some veterans never wanted to see it again after the war. Others asked for it every Sunday until the day they died. Known affectionately in military slang as shit on a shingle, veterans brought this recipe home, and it quickly became a suburban household legend. Thinly sliced salted dried beef was simmered in a heavy peppered cream sauce and poured over toasted bread. It was salty, savory, incredibly filling, and guaranteed to fuel 8 hours of hard labor. Number 13. Pickled herring and boiled potatoes. To modern eyes, this next entry might look more like a late dinner than breakfast. Yet for thousands of immigrant families across the Midwest, it was the ultimate way to start the day. In Nordic and German communities, tender boiled potatoes were paired right alongside chilled, vinegary pickled herring and fresh onions. It provided a powerful punch of protein, healthy fats, and a sharp flavor shock that woke you up far better than any dark roast coffee ever could. Number 14. Calf's liver and sweet onions. Before the first shift at the mill or another long day in the fields, many fathers started their mornings with liver and onions. Long before synthetic health supplements existed, this was considered the ultimate fuel. Thinly sliced calf's liver was seared quickly in an iron skillet alongside sweet caramelized onions and butter. Served next to fresh eggs, it delivered an unmatched natural boost for the long work ahead. Maybe that's why people don't really miss the breakfast themselves. They miss the person who quietly pulled out another chair. So tomorrow morning, before you rush out the door, take a moment to pull out that iron skillet, melt a thick pat of butter, and